Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an update to my Web Toolkit Framework. I renamed it because I recently found out that there's already a framework for web development with C++ that's quite popular I think. And it's called WT. I don't know how it's pronounced correctly, so but essentially they also have a widget-based modern C++. I think it's at least 11. It may be already C++ 14 if I interpreted their example correctly. But it's a lot of work with pointers and stuff. And I tried to avoid pointers. It's a good concept they are having. They work a lot with unique pointers, and so if you create a widget, you create a unique pointer, and this unique pointer is stored in the parent element, and so the ownership is already in the parent element, and you are just manipulating the child element. So it's quite efficient memory wise, but it's quite counterintuitive to what you are used to when you worked with Java, like widget-based, not Java widget-based web frameworks like GWT or Vadin or GXT or something like that, where you create your widget or your widget container and then add it to the parent element. You can do the same thing with Vadin. So you first create your child element, then add it to the parent element, and then add it to and then manipulate the child element. But I think in the Java way it's quite counterintuitive, and some people might not like this, but I try to bring a bit of Java and C# like coding to C++, at least to my framework, because that feels more natural to me. And I think a lot of other people too. So to the update, let's switch the scene. Okay, here we are. So I don't know if you can see this. I hope you are not watching this on a mobile device, because you won't probably be able to read this on the right, and I don't think I can. No, I think I can't zoom in. I'm sorry, but you can see that I already made some layouts and some widgets. Recently I found out about the CSS grid, and I like the functionality. It's not supported on all browsers very well. And the Internet Explorer, at least the old versions, are not supporting it entirely, or they don't support it. But this framework is only looking into the future, because I already only use HTML5. So if you want to use this framework in the future for older browsers and have concerns about compatibility, I'm sorry to inform you that this will stay your problem. You need to make a fork or use a different framework. So what did I do? I added the basic stuff you would use for your basic forms. You create a form where the user can insert some values and then send it to the the web server again. So you need something like a text box, like a password field, a date picker and stuff, and these are all based on the widget class. Widget is really small. The few HTML methods I will explain later. I think I can zoom in a little bit so you see it. Yeah, it's really small. It inherits from HTML elements, so it is a HTML element and we can add it to other elements without a problem. So there's that. Text box is also really small, and as you can quite imagine, a text box is nothing more than an input field. You could add a wrapper, a div, to wrap the input field and do some CSS magic with that, but I think that's something you would want to do yourself or even later. So you have something like a text field. It's not a text box like in the input field. It's really a unique widget with its own behavior. So I just implemented the basic stuff. Date picker is also just an input field and a date time instance. It's a DNC date time, so I'm already using my own date time class. We also have horizontal and vertical layouts. The vertical layout is quite similar to the horizontal layout. So we have the add widget method. I'm thinking about adding a layout container base class. That's also a widget, but the layouts will inherit from it. So the method add widget will already be in there and is not needed to implement in the class itself anymore. So what am I expecting? It needs to be a widget I add to a layout. I don't want some other stuff in there. So if you're already on the level of widgets, I think you would stay with widgets, so you will only use widgets and not HTML elements or some other tags like list element. I will create fitting widgets for list elements, so that will be that. And you have I think it's just a div container, and every child widget has a div wrapper around itself, so I can apply CSS in there. So that's that. And the magical thingy I did was, this was a little bit more effort, and I used a string stream. I didn't use one of my own strings because I heard string stream was quite good with inserting multiple types of data. So I have a constant char pointer in here, or a char array that's inserted in the style string, and numbers and stuff. And I tried some things with my own string class. I tried to use a little bit of template magic on it to make it compatible for multiple concatenation of numbers and strings, but I ran into problems there and haven't solved them yet. So you still see here it's a string stream. You create a standard string from it, you make my own string class from it, and then add it to the wrapper. Yes, so the grid layout is just like the CSS grid layout. You set your templates, you set your column and row templates. You can add them, you can set them. I'm using vectors here. I don't know if I will switch to my own list. because my own list has only the advantage of more methods, but in itself it's still just a vector. And in this case I probably only will need a flat vector. Maybe I will add some methods for just adding arrays. So if you really exactly know what you want, you can just create an inline array with the curly brackets, I think. So it will be a one-liner to set the row templates, and just curly brackets, your insert values, curly brackets, and go. Yes, and yes, you have your row templates, the column templates, and these are laid out in the toHTML method because again, the things with the toHTML methods I will explain at the end. So you go through all sub-elements and add it to the root element, and the sub-elements will have their own CSS to them. So you need to add how is it called? You need to set the position. So in which row, in which column, and or grid area is also a thing you can set. And you can name it, and that's a lot of stuff I need to implement in this widget, so it will be quite a lot of work to do that in this widget. So here I think I'm just creating the style for it, I think. Yes. And then I set the style, root style, row template, column template, and then go. Yes, and then the widget to HTML if the base widget has some more added stuff. So that's that, but the most interesting part is probably how it plays out. So what we have here is we have a vertical layout, blah blah blah. Yes, grid layout. So we have, what do we have? We have two columns. We have a 20% column and an auto column. So the first column will be 20% of the whole grid. And the second will be auto, or you could also say one FR. FR is for fraction, that takes the whole screen. But if you have more columns with FR, or fractions, they will what's the word for it? They will share their space with each other in relation to the other fractions. So if you have one with one fraction and one with two fraction, the remaining free space is divided by 3. And the one with one fraction is occupying one part of it, and the one with two fractions is occupying 2 parts of the 3 remaining fractions. So it's quite intelligent in that regard. A row template works the same, so we have 20% in the mid, 80% and 20%. I didn't write 80% because I wanted to try if auto works. I haven't still only tested it in Chrome, but it works at the moment. So what else did we do? So we set the header, we took an h1 element and added it to it, and the add widget method is special for the grid layout. So if we look at it, the first thing is the component we want to add, of course. And the second thing is row, then column, then row span, then column span. So the first element is in the first row, in the first column, And that's already a problem for me, at least in thinking, because the CSS grid is 1 based and not 0 based. So it might be good for people that are not used to this stuff, but for programmers it's a bit of the thinking. So we have no row span, so it will only occupy the first row, but we have a col span of 3, so it will occupy the whole all columns. I think we could write, yes, I think we could write 2 in there because we only have 2 columns, but that doesn't matter at the moment. So the side menu, you need a menu on the side. Every website has it if it's stretched to full width, full HD width. So that's that. It's just a paragraph with a different names in it, and then it is added to a menu. The menu is just a vertical layout, and the vertical layout is just added to the grid. So in the center we have some text. We could write more in there, the full lorem ipsum text, but who needs that? What I still need to add is some different colors, but I wanted to set that with CSS, but I haven't added CSS functionality, so that's already one more thing to go. And the footer, it's just some text in the bottom. But what I want to show you is, and I put some time measurement in there to measure the microseconds it takes to create all elements and how much seconds it takes to render those elements to HTML. So I'm seeing where the problems are, if it's the rendering or the construction. We will see that in a moment. I hope I can switch to a layout that's more fitting, so you can see the full screen. It's an executable, so it runs behind an Apache or XAMPP in this case. So I will start the XAMPP. I will call localhost. Okay, it runs quite smoothly, and now I just need to show it to you. So I will switch scenes. That's the wrong scene, of course. Just a moment. I know, not the best preparation. This is OS. I don't need that. I need this. So this is the result of what is rendered. The first number is how long it took to construct, and the second number is how long it took to render the constructed elements to HTML. And these are not milliseconds, these are microseconds, so I'm quite pleased with it. So if we have a page that's similar in rendering time, we could provide with this processor, with only one thread, we could provide about what is it, 500 microseconds, so it's 2000 people per second, roundabout. And so it's 2000 clicks per second, or calls per second. So I'm quite pleased with it. This number will go up with the complexity, of course, and it will go up if you have database calls or calls to other APIs and stuff, or more complex sites. But what I wanted to show you is how all this lays out. This here is our grid layout, and you can already see it looks quite nice. If you think about the times back then when there was no grid layout and flex boxes were not really supported and stuff, and you needed to create a business application with just HTML and CSS, it was quite a nightmare, to be honest. And that's the reason why frameworks like GWT, Vardin and stuff are so popular, because you don't need to care about that stuff. You just add your widgets and everything works out quite fine. So, you see the template columns, template rows. This is the first row, as I said. I think we could manipulate the span to 2. I don't know. Do we have 3 columns? Oh yes, we have 3 columns. So if we want to have everything, okay, now it's right again. So I misjudged that there. I would like to have the H1 in the middle, but that's one for another time. And so you have your menu on the left. This is just built with div containers. You could use a list element, and to be honest, if I create a dedicated menu widget, I will use a list element. So you have that support for blind people. If blind people read a website, they need to know, okay, this is a menu and this is a list element, and it's shown to them on their special keyboards that this is a list element, and they can go through all the menu items and select one if it's a link or something. So let's close that again. So this is the middle one. I think I would want what is this? This is a col span of 1. Yes, so we would only occupy the middle part, and of course the footer is like the header again, the whole horizontal area. So this works. I'm quite proud of that. It didn't take too long, but the part that took longer was imagining how to improve it and not just add widgets like a maniac. So we will go back to the scene. This one, was it this one? Yes, it was this one. So now I will show you what I've done to improve the speed of this. Or at least I think it will improve the speed if the websites will become more complex. So you have more recursiveness in the HTML elements and widgets. So what I added, and I read about it on Stack Overflow, is creating your own StringBuilder. If you know C#, C# has its own StringBuilder, and it works quite well. And I read about it. They just use a linked list, so you don't have a list that needs a lot of resizing. So I just used a linked list of strings, and then if you add something, you just put it into the list, and at the end you call toString. So as you can see, it's not too complex. It's really just that code. And if you add something, you measure this, you get the size of the string you add, because if you have the full length of all strings in your list, you can call reserve on your other standard string, so it will reserve the entire space you will need to concat all your strings. So I can just go and iterate through all strings and say result, add this string and return this result. And at least in my mind, this will add a lot of speed when rendering complex websites. So that was a thing that I added as soon as I got on vacation. So that's also a reason that this project is not as fast as it could be, because I have other side projects, and I will create videos about them on this channel. So I have a few projects about a Minecraft clone. So somebody created a Minecraft clone, but it's only single player, and I want to introduce multiplayer. And for that I want to create some spreadsheets first and show it to you, and I hope that some of you will watch the video, and I hope a few of you have some experience with networking and know where the problems might be that I could run into. I hope that sentence made sense. And yes, and I still have a few other projects. I have still my project DNC, my I always say did not comment, but it's a .NET clone. So it looks like .NET and a little bit of Java, but it's C++, pure C++ with RAII. And oh yeah, one thing, I tried to use unique pointers in my HTML element class. So I tried to make not a list but a vector of unique pointers. So I hope that I could do the same as the WT framework. But that had a lot of design problems because I couldn't copy the HTML class and inheriting classes anymore, because if you have a unique pointer you can not copy, you can only move. But I wanted to keep that copy functionality, so I stayed with shared pointers. But what I added in the process was another add element method, so you can construct with perfect forwarding the element as I mentioned. So perfect forwarding will forward all constructor arguments to the to be constructed HTML element or widget, and you will get reference to that created widget what will be a shared pointer. Where is it? Yes, here. It will be a shared pointer already in that list, so the ownership will be in here. There will not be another shared pointer. So you're working all the time with just a reference, so you can still use widget dot set style, set background color, and whatever. And that makes the ownership quite clear and is also quite memory conserving. If you're not concerned with memory, you can still use this method. It will make a copy of your reference here, and add the copy to the list of shared pointers. So as you can see, it works. Of course, this example is not the prettiest that I showed you a moment ago, but I hope you liked it. And if you want to see more, give me a thumbs up and share this video. I'm also quite happy about criticism, because I'm only using C++ as a hobby, and that only since I think I started in February, we now have December, it's about 10 months or something. So I'm quite proud with what I've done, but it needs a lot of improvement, because I'm sure there are some memory leaks somewhere. I tried to use only shared pointers and few or no raw pointers, but I'm not perfect. So, and it's a framework, and the framework should be stable. At a later part I will add tests also, but I've never written tests in my life. I know a lot of programmers will hate me for that, but they haven't been necessary until probably in a few months. At work we have a big project that will probably need some tests, and I have no idea how to write good tests, so that's that, and I hope I can improve on that. So, and before I talk too much, this video is already long enough, I hope I could entertain and inform you a little bit. And so thanks for watching, and have a good day, night, or whatever. See ya.